We saw some progress from the UVA basketball team in the loss to Memphis on Wednesday night, but the margin for error going forward is quite slim. Chris Graham, Augusta Free Press here. We'll do a couple things as we look back at last night's 64-62 loss to Memphis. I mean, it's encouraging in a way, but think back as recently as a year ago, you wouldn't be encouraged by a loss. Looking back at last night, for some reason, Memphis coach Penny Hardaway played UVA basketball for about 20 minutes. He played measured, precise, half-court basketball, sat back and let Virginia kind of play its game. And go figure, it didn't work. The best half of basketball we saw from UVA basketball this season. Virginia led 30-21 at the break. Uh, 8 of 28 shooting from Memphis, 3 of 15 from three, excuse me. And Virginia looked to be poised for the upset. Now, thinking at halftime, wrote this on my live game coverage. You could expect some adjustments from Penny Hardaway coming out of the locker room, and I didn't expect the adjustment he made. And it made the decision for him to play straight up for the first 20 minutes stand out even more. I wrote in my column about this that he unleashed the hounds of hell on Virginia in the second half. Virginia had the ball to start the second half, and first possession. Now Virginia scored on the first possession, but uh, half court trap to sort of get Virginia out of its offense. The offense in the first half was very measured and precise. Actually a nice departure from what we saw in the first 10 games this season. Ron Sanchez almost entirely scrapping the mover blocker offense that relies on all the screening action going on both sides of the court all at the same time. Instead, ball screens, dribble handoffs, spacing the floor so the middle of the floor is open more for either dribble drives by the guards or post dumps, and allowing the guys when they got a chance in the lane to have room to operate. It was really nice to watch. And then the hounds of hell were unleashed with the half court traps. It got Virginia out of running any real plays. It's almost like a zone trap, even though there was a man element to it. And then after made baskets or even missed baskets that Virginia would rebound and not able to get a push up the floor, Memphis would full court press and make Virginia basically work its way up the court. And again, taking any semblance of offensive rhythm away from Virginia, really for the entire second half, it felt like. And Virginia played into it. Ron Sanchez never adjusted to this stratagem from Penny Hardaway, and it's very frustrating that this was the case. Uh, there was no intent to. All right, here we go. They're going to overplay the passing lanes. They're going to double the ball out of ball handlers' hands um, in the forecourt. So let's backdoor them. If they're going to overplay a passing lane going away from the basket, we'll fake that pass and cut to the hoop and take advantage open layups and alley-oop dunks perhaps in the case based on the athleticism of the guy on the other end. No, Virginia just kept wanting to run the shot clock. And when you do that and you're passive in that situation against a very aggressive defense, you're going to do what Virginia did in the second half and not shoot well and commit a lot of turnovers. So, um, no corrections from Sanchez. Very frustrating to see that in a game that Virginia lost by 2 points. Very frustrating because this was improvement. Again, uh, fourth loss by Virginia in 11 games this season to a top 25 team. Number one, Tennessee. Number seven, Florida, St. John's, which is now not ranked but is 9-2 this season. Memphis, number 21 this week. I mean, just like those teams, Memphis much more physical, demonstrably more athletic than Virginia. And yet, look what the final result was, a 64-62 loss in a lot of ways that was, you know, a strategy loss, a chess match loss almost. Um, Virginia led by as many as 11 in this, and that was with the tweaks to the offense that I talked about in the first half, and also just that great defense. Penny Hardaway talked about how, these two teams played last season, but he only has one guy back from that rotation that won that game down in Memphis last year, and he tried to impress upon his team. You don't play anybody who plays the pack line defense like Virginia does, and they take away things that everyone else gives you. They take away the baseline. They funnel you back to the middle. They play the gaps. They make it hard for you to dribble drive and kick out. And then they'll close out on threes. And Virginia in the first half played great defense and made that work. Really, the way Penny was able to get his team back in this game and take the lead and hold on for the win was again by uglying it up, turning it into a track meet type game. And even though there weren't that many more possessions, it's just Virginia's possessions weren't effective because of the way Memphis was really just dictating the way things were going on, really on both ends. Uh, the approach in the second half was interesting. Memphis is one of the a pretty good three-point shooting team and a pretty good jump shooting team in general. They weren't last night. So in the second half, with the uglying it up kind of situation, the Tigers took the ball to the rim a lot more. First half, only 7 shots at the rim. Second half, 14 shots at the rim. A stretch of 4 possessions that ended with layups fueled a run that gave Memphis the lead, as it turned out, for good. Memphis would lead by as many as 9. Virginia cut it to 2 at the end there a couple times, but just not able to get over the hump in the final accounting. There was a turning point. If you watch the game, obviously you know what I'm getting ready to talk about. There was an odd call on a driving layup attempt by Day Ames, 11:15 to go in the game. That may have been decisive scoreboard wise. I mean, you have to be careful when you analyze something that happens with that much time to go in a game. It does change a lot of situations. A couple points even can change a lot of situations. But the way this one went down, as I wrote in my column, Ames nearly lost an arm on a drive to the rim, but no foul was called. It was hit pretty hard, but there was not a verticality kind of situation with the defender. After the miss, PJ Hagerty, the leading scorer for Memphis, had 27 last night. He was the defensive player. He came down with the rebound on this play, and he tripped over Ames, who was called for the foul. And that was the way it was called live, a foul on Ames, even though Ames got knocked to the floor. And really, what happened was Hagerty, after they both landed, fell over Ames. The refs conferred for 60 seconds maybe, and then they decided to change the foul to Saunders. And at this point, you can go look at the replay and determine who the foul was on. Now, I gotta say, the next thing that happened after going to the replay desk, the refs watched the video several times and then decided that there was a technical foul on Day Ames. They said he intentionally tripped Hagerty. Uh, Maybe I'm misunderstanding the rule. My thought was that the rule was they couldn't go back and look for something like that. They could look for who the foul was on, and they decided it was Saunders, and they were trying to decide again whether it was Saunders or Ames. A little interesting that they came back and then decided that there was a technical foul on Ames. And because Virginia was already in the bonus, it gave Hagerty a 1-and-1, and then they had a two-shot foul, then had the ball in bounds. Now the ball in bounds at the end of all this didn't matter. Memphis missed the shot, but Hagerty made one of two of the 1-and-1 situation, then made both of the technical free throws. 3 points right there in what turned into a 2-point loss for Virginia. Um, Gifted 3 points, I'm saying, because I mean, honestly, it looked like Ames was fouled. He should have been shooting two instead of Memphis going down to the other end and shooting four. Um, Credit to Virginia, though, in this situation. Sorry, my nose is itching up here and I got a scratch. Um, it was a 5 point lead at that time, and that 5 point lead, because of that situation, I mean, it could have been, down to a 4 or 3 if Ames makes one or two free throws. Instead, it goes from 4 or 3 up to 8 with the 3 free throws. It felt in the gym. I don't know what it felt like watching TV for those who are watching and watch this game on TV last night. It felt in the gym that, boy, this is where Memphis pulls away. I mean, this is a team that had beaten UConn, they'd beaten Michigan State this year, they beat Clemson a few days ago. And Virginia held the lead for quite a long time in this game. It felt like, all right, here we go. This will be enough to put Memphis over the top. Credit to Virginia, they hung around. Um, Game notes: Elijah Saunders had 15 points, 10 in the second half. Nice. He was 3 of 4 from three, and after a three, I believe it was by Haggerty with 2.5 to go. Ron Sanchez called a timeout, drew up a play. It looked like the play when we were watching it at first. It looked like the play was Day Ames just taking his man to the basket. He took his man to the basket, drew help. The help was from Saunders' man. Saunders was stationed at the 3 point line. I mean, they drew up a play for the center to get a 3 point shot. He's a good 3 point shooter, but a lot of confidence there from the coaching staff and Saunders that they could run this play for him and get him an open look from three, and he would drain it. Tane Murray had 14 points on 5 of 9 shooting. He had a throwdown dunk that reminded me of Trey Murphy in the first half. Do not know where that came from. Did not expect to see that. Andrew Rohde looked out of place. 5 turnovers in this one. and they were the bad kind. I mean, I don't know that any of them, when I think back to it, I don't think any of them were live ball turnovers that, gave Memphis a chance to run out. But they were just the kind that if you were playing YMCA ball, you wouldn't want this guy on your pickup team. Throwing the ball across court, throwing the ball in the stands, just awful, awful, awful turnovers from Rhodey there. Jacob Kofi started the game in place of Blake Buchanan. Then he only played 14 minutes because of foul trouble. And this was another coaching error on the part of Ron Sanchez. So I mentioned that, okay, Memphis comes out in the second half and they're playing aggressively. They're half court trapping, they're full court pressing. I'm screaming from the press row, which is way up in the stands, but I'm, basically screaming to nobody. Call timeout. You got to get some more ball handlers on the floor. You got to do something else. Uh, as this was going on, Jacob Kofi had two fouls in the first half. He picked up a cheapie, number three with 19:09 to go, and Sanchez left him in the game. And 7 seconds later, Kofi picked up number four. He's on the bench for the next 10 minutes. Um, Actually, next 12 minutes. He left at 19:02, came back in with 7:12. It was just completely rendered him ineffective. And the other rookie coach move from Sanchez was Ames missed a jumper. It was, not a smart shot. He would kind of fade away, long 2-point jumper, 18-16 mark. And then Sanchez lifted him, subbed him, and didn't bring him back in for, let me see how long that was. Um, 3.5 minutes. During that 3.5 minute stretch, a 10-point Virginia lead became a 2-point Virginia lead. You can't do that. When the other team is out there pressing your guards, and you take your one point guard, your one good ball handler out of the game, to punish him for taking a bad shot. You're punishing your team. You're punishing yourself in that situation. Punishing yourself because Ron Sanchez is still the interim coach. He'd like to be more than the interim coach, I guess you'd say. Um, some more news and notes here, and this is kind of covering the press conference after the game. Uh, one observation I made after was that, I mean, Tony Bennett didn't do Ron Sanchez any favors. He left him the schedule. I'm always someone who gauges in the Tony Bennett era. I gauged what Tony thought about of his team in terms of its talent and his expectations based on his scheduling. You can change your schedule from time to time, from year to year. Whether or not you want to go to a trip to the Bahamas and play a couple tough games against Tennessee and St. John's, or you want to play a tournament somewhere else that might be a little lighter on the schedule there. He picked up Memphis before last season for a home and home, but he was anticipating that this team would be better than it's shown so far. Uh, Sanchez noted that last night. This is a quote. This team has been tested this season. This is one of the toughest non-conference schedules that I remember at this university, my time here and my time away. To have this many top 25 teams in a non-conference schedule is a challenge. Obviously, right? At least this one was competitive all the way to the end. I mentioned the Tennessee, Florida, St. John's losses. Virginia was not competitive, lost all those games by at least 18 points. They were in each of those games for a long stretch. In the Tennessee game, it was a 1 point game at halftime. It was 1 point game in the second half at Florida. St. John's, it was only briefly a game. Late in the first half, St. John's went on a big run and pulled away and never got that game never got back in touch. Um, Virginia actually led this one by as many as 11 in the second half before Memphis, with what it did to turn things up, the pressure ratcheting up both defensively and on offense, turn this game in a different direction. Uh, Penny Hardaway said that he knew he had to do this coming out of halftime to get Virginia out of his comfort zone. He said, this is a quote from Hardaway, the pressure got us going to where our energy got up and our confidence got up because we had lost confidence a little bit because it's hard to score against those guys. Once we started pressuring and getting them to turn the ball over, that's when we started making some shots. I mean, yeah, that's, when you're out there playing harder on defense, and you're dictating on defense, it's going to make you have more energy on offense, and that's certainly what happened. Credit to the Virginia kids again. Elijah Saunders said, we fought to the end of the game. We can play with ranked teams. We know that. We have enough. It's just a matter now of finishing it out. He said, for this game, we played for longer. We kept it close the whole game. That press kind of frustrated us, but we're good enough, and we know that now, and it's just another learning experience for us. Tane Murray, who I mentioned, had a big game for Virginia, 14 points in 26 minutes off the bench. A note there that's interesting is that Penny Hardaway, when he was asked about Tane Murray and his game after the game by reporters, this is what Hardaway said, and this is interesting to think about. He said he was damn good tonight. His energy, he wasn't just a three-point shooter. He drove the ball, he posted. He's a really good player. Um, and he said he didn't have him in the scouting report. He said we didn't talk a lot about Tane Murray at all. Then he came into the game and affected the game in a major way. I don't even know what year he is. This is what Hardaway said because he wasn't really on our scouting report. What year is he? He played like a senior, which is what he is. And he was ready for his moment, and he played phenomenally. He just was. He was not just shooting threes. He made the three to make us honest, drove the lane, got to the free throw line. He did it all, and I was impressed. Um, Murray coming into this one was a healthy scratch in one game, the Villanova win. He had four goose eggs this season, averaging 2.6 per game coming in. Last night, he looked like a beast. The three from the corner, the splash and then the three drives to the basket, a tough layup, just amazing throwdown dunk that reminded me of Trey Murphy. So there's a lot of positives coming out of here. The problem for this team with this loss last night, this is the last non-conference game of note of this nature where you can get a quad one type win. The last non-conference game is this weekend, Sunday, with American. And casting no aspersions on American. I'm not going to call them nobody you like Doug Gottlieb called Michigan Tech before losing to them last night. But a win over American is not going to bolster your resume for an NCAA tournament if you can get this team turned around from 6-5 and get in contention. I mean, this is thinking way down the road in terms of, we haven't seen this potential out of a Virginia team, but let's just do some math here. If this Virginia team, the ACC is down this year, and we can all admit that Virginia's part of that. This could be a two or three bid league this year. It's playing so down. Duke, obviously a top 10 team, top five team. After that, I don't know what the ACC has. Pitt looked like they were good for a while and got destroyed in the ACC SEC Challenge. North Carolina's playing 500 ball just like Virginia. The powers aren't powers right now. The middle of the conference isn't playing any better. This could be a tough year for the ACC outside of Duke, honestly. So let's just say this Virginia team, this is again a rosy scenario, but if this Virginia team were to go like 15-5 in the ACC, well, 15-5 in the ACC, there's one more game with American. Let's count that as a win. Virginia's already 0-1 in the ACC, so it's going to be tougher there. But if you go 16-4 the rest of the way, you're 22-9. 22-9 against this schedule when you're 0-4 in your non-conference games against top 25s, and then if you were to go 15-5 in a diminished ACC, I don't know that that gets you in, and that's to me rosy scenario. Okay, and I'm just kind of painting a picture that I don't know. I think in some ways this season's already on the downswing unless you go to the ACC tournament and run the table, and that's probably going to mean four wins. I don't know that this team is a tournament team, unfortunately. And it's, even if they could turn it around, I mean, do the UVA thing and win a bunch of games in the ACC, it's just not going to be the same this year. Um, so when you hear Sanchez say as he did last night, he does this a lot after losses. That's something we'll learn from. We'll watch the video. Unfortunately, it's beyond time to watch the video. Um, he had something to say that was very much an echo of Tony Bennett. The quote, "This team is on its journey to become the best version of itself." Heard Tony say something like that an awful lot, pretty much every year, several times a year, some years. What it's going to be, I don't know, Sanchez said. Only time will tell. At this point, I'm really happy with the fact that we competed that hard. Well, that's good. As a teacher, you competed that hard, but he's competing also for getting that interim tag off, and I'm not sure, just not sure that what we're seeing out of this team this year is going to do that for him. So I want to be proven wrong on that. I definitely do. So again, as I'm recording this, it's Thursday night. Virginia has American on Sunday. I'll do a preview. Let's see, sometime during the day tomorrow, just to get out there ahead of time. The Sunday game's at 2 o'clock, so that's nice. I don't think we've had a weekend day game. Don't think we've had a weekend day game during the day this season. I don't think well, I think we've had all night games in JPJ this year. So we'll get more of those as the ACC ramps up. That's going to be fun. But again, American on Sunday at 2 o'clock. So I'll preview it. We will. Of course, I'll do live coverage of the game during the game, where I share thoughts, observations, whatever I see with how the offense is running, what they're doing defensively, lineup issues, whatever the case may be. Of course, we'll have post game as well. Also, looking ahead, you might notice I am not one who is covering the transfer portal with a separate story about every guy that signs. Um, just not, just not going to do that. I'm going to do a wrap every couple, unless there's a big signing. And I say, when the two quarterbacks sign, yes, I did separate stories on those guys. Um, when there's a big pickup. I'll do a big pickup story. Otherwise, every so often I'll do a roundup and include a few guys in it because I don't know. I don't want to flood Google with lots of little things that aren't going to help. I'd rather wait until honestly, and except for if there's a huge recruit of some sort, like and I don't know that I foresee after these quarterbacks we signed, but if there's so I don't know a big wide receiver, I don't know, big wide receiver or something like that. I'd rather kind of wait until it's sort of over and then analyze position group by position group. So that's just me. So if you're waiting for me to tell you anything, you're gonna wait. And I don't, want to tell you to have to go look at other sites if you want to pick up one every, backup cornerback or interior offensive lineman that signs, but I'm not gonna flood the zone with that stuff. So I'm just gonna be honest with you there. All right. Well, that covers it. AugustaFreePress.com. You may have noticed as I'm wrapping up here, I'm being a little devious looking here. Uh, you might you might have noticed that at least for the time being, our Google, or it might be harder for us to be found on Google. Something weird is going on. That's all I'll say. Somebody who's got some sway of some sort has decided to play games with us on the back end. We've got people working on it. Uh, I don't know if it's we cover politics and if it's somebody who's mad that we are progressives, or if it's somebody who's upset that we're critical of UVA athletics. I don't something weird is going on. So anyway, but we're working on it. So if you think you've noticed that you're having a harder time finding us, yes, you're having a harder time finding us, but we're gonna fix that. Like I said, we got a team. I mean, to get to where I got to this stage, I had to learn a lot about Google and search engine optimization. I had to teach myself all that stuff for the last 20 years. And one thing I've learned in the last couple of years is there's a lot of people out there who are a lot smarter than me. We've teamed up with them, got them working on our behalf. And so between a lot of great minds, we're going to get this situation figured out, and we're not going to let whoever is playing games with us continue to play games with us. So anyway, AugustaFreePress.com. If you got any questions, concerns, things you want me to write about in the future, email me, Chris at AugustaFreePress.com.